Wes, and today we're having a look at the new Tolifo SK-135FR. Just the cutest little RGB CCT video light. Got a Bowens on the front, got a battery mount on the back. Fantastic. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, we need to talk about the build quality. So, first of all, if we take this apart, we'll see that we have plastic in the front, plastic on the back, and plastic in the middle. There's a lot of plastic going on here. The biggest problem I have with the plastic is that the metal arm that holds up the whole light is mounted to a plastic panel on the side, and you can see that whole thing bending when you pull on that. Not a good choice in my books. The plastic panels on the top and bottom are quite solid. The Bowens mount feels rigid, but the plastic tabs are hollowed out. I don't care for that, and the screws holding it together aren't enormous. On the front here, you see our big ol' heatsink, nice rigid aluminum fins. Another thing I don't like, there is no glass COB LED protector here. It's just this soft rubbery membrane. Come around to the back here. We have a release switch for our batteries so they don't just fall out. And this light comes in both a V-mount version and the Sony NPF mount batteries, so you can get that depending on what you want. The screen on the side here, a little bit squishy. It'll probably get scratched eventually. We'll talk more about that a little bit later. So overall for build quality, it's not setting any records for durability. It's clearly not weather sealed. I wouldn't want to put a gigantic softbox on this, but then again, it doesn't have enough power to use a gigantic softbox in most circumstances, so I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10 for build quality. Feature set. We do not have an umbrella holder, but we do have a Bowens mount, which is important. We can run this on battery power, and while on battery, we can do 100% of our HSI or RGB output. However, when switching to CCT mode, we can only go to 50% of power output. That's because in CCT mode, we go up to 140 watts at 2700K, 128 watts at 5600K, whereas in HSI mode, we're only using 73 watts at max power output for 120 degree green, and then at 240 degree blue, we're using a paltry 43 watts of power, which is normal. The blue tends to be low in lights like this, which is frustrating because you end up with a bit of a weird curve. We'll talk more about that in light quality. Here we're going to have a look at the effects and the app interface. And as always, big ol' seizure warning until 6 minutes and 8 seconds into this video. Here we see we don't have any control over the CCT or white balance of these effects, but at least in the fire effect and the candle effect, we do have what is generally an appropriate white balance. For the party, it appears to be pretty much the exact same thing as the RGB loop. I'm not entirely sure what impression I'm supposed to be getting out of this. In the fireworks, as you can see, they lack a certain randomness and pop. It's just kind of a fast pulse. A much better party going on at the disco here. That is not a North American ambulance. Or a North American fire engine. Really? Just one color? To the eye, the welding is just shockingly fast, but on video it does not convey well because it's way too fast for the refresh rate of a camera going for 30p. And as you can see, this is not the most complete interface, but it is very quick and easy, very simple. One of the big features for me is having the batteries. It has all the stuff, it just needs just a little bit more to get there. It's a 9 out of 10. This is a very feature-rich and versatile device. It does also come with a DC barrel plug to plug this into the mains if you want. Usability. Once again, this is a pretty easy and simple light to use. There's nothing crazy complicated going on here. Bowens mount, it's tighty-righty. I prefer that, as it should be for anything. The screen viewing angles are very good. See, you can see it there, you can see it there, you can see it there. Fantastic. We only have one control wheel, which usually annoys me. I would rather have more than one control wheel just to get things out of the way more easily without having to cycle through. And the problem with this is if you hold this button down for a few seconds, you forget what you're doing, it resets the Bluetooth, and then you have to manually reconnect it to the app again. Depends on how heavy your trigger finger is there. But I would prefer to have just a little bit more control interface on the side here. I am nitpicking at this point though. The biggest problem that I personally have with this device is that there is no fan curve. So no matter what output you're at, whether it's 1% or 100%, the fan's always at 100%. For 100%, it's not super loud, but when you're using very little power, it's still producing 38 to 39 decibels at 3 feet, which is more than I would like to see when something is at a very low output level. Overall, this is very straightforward. It's a 9 out of 10 for usability. Very light, compact, adaptable, versatile. Light quality. Here we're going to do some empirical measurements. And so we need to measure this both for the white light and for the RGB or HSI light. So let's take a closer look there. In the white light table, we're not doing so hot. So we have a CRI of 97, which isn't so bad, but the R9 is only 88 at 5600K. Our Kelvin shift is pretty good too, but the lack of solid R9 really gives us a hit. So that gives us an 82.2% on our white quality scale. However, in the RGB or HSI scale, we are doing very well. The worst part of this is the power deviation. As you can see in the green, you got tons of light. In the blue, not a lot, which is normal. However, something like the Sony X60, you have a lot less light when it comes to the green, but it is a more stable curve overall. Then if we look at our other specs here, we have incredibly good saturation and purity. We have very good centroid wave accuracy, which is how accurate each of those colors are to where they should be in the HSI spectrum, in the degrees, which is achieved by having high quality LEDs that have the correct positions in color space to create that color triangle in color space. So overall, we get a 92.1 in the RGB scale, which is very good. And once we average those two together, that gives us an 8.7 for light quality. Very good, not great. Value. Now, one problem in comparing these lights together in the value section is I try to use like for like, power output for power output, but most of these lights, they do RGB and they do white light, and their ratings are based on the white output, which is always way higher than the RGB output. So take some of these comparisons with a grain of salt. Some will be higher output, some will be lower. So this one comes in at $210, and you can also get it in a V-mount version. The Sony X60, tried and true classic, tough as nails. This one is $200, just a teeny tiny bit less. Other lights in this category would be the Cobor CL60 for $200, the Neewer CB60 for $230. I'm only counting lights with full-size Bowen mounts, by the way. Yongnuo YN Lux 100 RGB for $150. But if you want that battery capability, handle, accessories and stuff, that's going to get you up to $300. Then you have the Amran 150C, much bigger light for $360, but also more power. But honestly, value-wise, none of these really compare when it comes to being able to just boom, powered-on battery built right into it, which is fantastic. And so, yeah, you can do this amount of RGB light and quality for less. However, just the general versatility, usability of this, it's hard to beat at this price point. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10 for value, which gives us a total score of 85.8%, which is honestly higher than I expected it was going to be. We have some sacrifices on the build quality, but that picks us back up again on the value and on just the general performance and usability of this. This tight little package is so versatile, you can just do anything that you want with it. You have any questions about the Tolifo SK-135FR, the F standing for NPF battery. There's a VR for the V mount. Let me know down in the comments below. If you want to pick one of these up, I'll have links down in the description below to help support this channel and feed my fat cats. But until next time, let's go take some colorful photos.